Alright, welcome to showcase number 118. It's been a little while since the last one, I think 2 weeks or something like that, and that's the intention. It was meant to be moved back to 2 weeks per showcase, but that's a good thing in my opinion. It gives me more time to work and gives you guys more content in each showcase, so I'm happy all around. And before we get to the juicy stuff today, the visual things that are very exciting and all that, I have some really good news for you guys, and I was really excited to show this stuff off because the bug testing and the play testing and all that jazz went exceptionally well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that first, and then we'll get into all the spell stuff and the balance stuff and all the stuff that I know you guys are looking forward to. We also have stuff about outfits and clothing and weapons and hair and all kinds of stuff. Really, really cool things all coming in the showcase. So stay tuned for that. Right now we're going to do some boring things and talk about the promise of the playtesting and just how well it went exactly. So first up, I know I have it on bug reports right now, but we're going to look over here to the CPU. So this is, again, a really boring part, but I just want to explain to you guys this real quick. So you can see we have spikes up here, and it might look pretty frightening at first, but I would point out that these are 10%, and they're only when the server first starts up. So this spike is unrelated, this is a bug, but over here you can see a more regular schedule. This was the two playtest dates specifically, so you can see the gap. This was Wednesday, this is Tuesday, and this is Thursday. And as soon as the server goes up, it spikes really high. That's because it's doing all the calculations for auto-tiling and stuff like that for the entire maps. And then, of course, it drops back down. This is probably hard to see here, but this is about 1.1% CPU, which is exceptional. This is about 5 to 6 people running constantly and then using spells and stuff in ways that we probably won't see in the actual game itself. So, like 10 people constantly hitting each other, casting spells, seeing all the projectiles go around and everything does not push this $10 server past 2% CPU usage. Again, you can see kind of small spikes here. I believe these are related to bugs, so these bugs have since been fixed, but again, this is sort of unavoidable. You will have some CPU spikes from like a memory leak or something that is then later fixed, but you get the idea. The general gist is that the game can run at a stable 2% CPU usage for a long period of time without worrying too much about it, which is super, super cool. I'm very happy about that. Anyway, like I said, max CPU usage is about 10% right as it starts up, and then it immediately drops off to a more stable like 2 to 4%, depending on what's going on and what's happening, which is really cool. I'm really happy about that. So, first of all, I know I talked about this before, but basically that was the whole point of the playtest, to see how things went and see if the server could handle this kind of stuff. And the answer is yes, a $10 server can handle this pretty well. It has about 2 gigabytes of RAM, and even that is not pushed to the limit. It's about 20% memory usage, and the server by itself, just a velocity server, sits at about 10%. So we're good there. 2 gigabytes of RAM is tiny, and it's still fine. It's more than enough to run Verdict, which is cool, at least with a smaller number of players anyway. And that's very promising. CPU is the same, and what's more is the bug reports and bug fixes worked great. I have a nice and tidy list of bugs that need to be fixed now, which is really good for me because that helps me organize things. And you can see on the screen here some of the ones that I fixed. I won't bore you too much with this, but the TLDR, and I guess I can give you one of the most interesting examples, was there was this bug where when someone was knockbacked, it caused the screen to flash black and white really fast. And if you weren't aware, Zikri has epilepsy, so I was very panicked about that. I had to very quickly go over to Zikri and tell him not to not to log on, because that is obviously a huge danger. That is, of course, a fix now, so that's, or rather has been fixed now, so Zikri can rest assured that he won't have an epileptic attack because of my game, thank God. But I, just wanted to share with you guys the most interesting one, I guess. And then this here is an example of the bug reports themselves. So I added a little functionality to my bot so that we can actually add on, you can see some examples of just easy bug reports that are formatted in a nice way to look at, and that's what we've been doing recently over the past couple of playtest days. But anyway, again, if you guys are some of the people that are allowed into this, so if you're staff, if you're developer patron, if you're, one of my closer friends, I guess, is kind of just random, then let me know if you want to get in or want to know how to get in, or if you're already aware of the channel, just look at the channel. It has details there. But every Tuesday and Thursday we're doing playtests where you're basically encouraged to get on and ruin things. That's going to be expanded to more players soon enough, and each day we're going to have a different focus. So I'm going to try to fixate a specific Tuesday or Thursday on admin tools, spells, breaking specific aspects of the game as much as possible, and so on and so forth. As always, I'm going to warn you guys before we get into this and say that OBS does in fact tank my FPS, but if you are curious about the client performance on Vertex Server, it's about 60 FPS, which I'm really happy about. It's really stable, and if you use the launcher, it's even more stable. We do have dips down to about 45 to 50 sometimes if you're in a big fight with a lot of people using spells constantly, but I think if you're just in a 1v1, it's not too bad, and I'm working on fixing that anyway, so we'll see how that works in the future. I just wanted to warn you guys and say, you know, that is what it is, and of course, as always, OBS is just beating the crap out of my computer. It's what it does, I guess. But anyway, we're going to take a look at creation real quick because we have hairs now, which is really cool. I'm going to try to go kind of quick. We can click whatever we want for the name, doesn't really matter. All this other stuff doesn't really matter either. For the record, I know that these are kind of small, like the text is kind of small, I mean, so that's going to be something I fix in the future as well. But this menu is also new, so this is something I showed off before a little bit, but clearly we are in a little zone of our own now. It's the special map used specifically for creation, and you can see we also have a outfit on, which is nice. It looks a lot better than the naked base because that was strikingly reminiscent of Attack on Titan Titans, so really happy about that. But anyway, with spine, it's really easy to cycle through hairs, so you can see here we do that with relative ease. It's very simple, and we have about 20 hairs total in just resources, I guess. However, here we have about 9, so we have 9 out of the 20-ish hairs that we're supposed to, which is fine. More will be imported with time, of course. But anyway, we can also see hair color here. So this is a little fluorescent right now. It's very neon, I guess you could say, which is something that we do need to fix. But obviously, it's just adopting from the same eye color stuff, or eye color palette, I should say. So again, in the future, that'll be much more gradient and have a lot more options for you to pick from. But it's just a proof of concept anyway. And you can see that it clearly is demonstrating the effectiveness right here for you. Now, this will work for everyone else on screen. There is an existing bug, just so you guys know, where when you relog, it will clear other people's hairs, but that's a relatively simple one to fix. It's something we figured out in one of the playtests, so it's, again, something I'm working on. But anyway, without further ado, I think we're going to go on to the other stuff. So weapons, clothing, etc., in just a second. Weapons and clothing are much different than how they were before, for the record. So one of the big deals here is that they're all using spine skins, and if we had hair, which we do not currently, I believe, I would say that that's also using a spine skin. Currently, we don't have any hair, of course, so that's not the case, but it's also very easy to use color on those, which I'm really happy about, and outlines, so I'm looking forward to having cool weapon effects. Like, for instance, if you have a legendary weapon, it might be outlined in red or something, and of course, as I can show you here, the equipment system works about the same as it did before. We can drag this in and out, and you can see the crit chance go up and down. And we could also equip a different wand, so we could put this one in, and you can see that attached to our body there. And then if we drag this one out and put a tome in, same deal. This one is going to show up on our back, and it looks very flush on the east and west directions. It's very nice. I'm very happy about that. And what's even more exciting is I know that currently there's no outfit in my torso or pant slot or whatever else, but this is actually 3 different skins attached in a format that looks like a single cohesive outfit. I'm really happy with this one, but I did kind of screw it up because I was rushing to get it in by Thursday or tomorrow, whatever it is, the playtest date. And of course, as a result of that, it looks a little bit janky in some directions. Like here, you can see the arm clip a little bit, but that's something that'll be fixed. It just needs some tweaking and so on and so forth. But the really exciting thing that I'm anticipating quite a bit is Howl's return. So he came back from break like 2 or 3 weeks earlier than I thought he would, which means that I can dump a ton of outfit work on him a lot sooner than I anticipated, which is really, really cool because that's, I think, one of the only things remaining. That's like, I mean, literally is the only thing remaining stopping us from having any sort of launch. So I'm very, very, very hype about that, and I will be sure to show you guys as soon as we have results there because, again, very excited about getting more outfits in the game. That'll also include like piecemeal stuff, so not necessarily just tunics and boots and, you know, cohesive outfits, I guess. But anyway, one of the other things I wanted to talk about today was the spell tree. So previously, a lot of the spells in the game were very buggy, and what I've been doing recently has been going through and fixing all of them until they're pristine and they look nice and they're properly aligned and all that jazz so that they don't look like they were made by a 2-year-old, basically. And I've also fixed up the spell tree quite a bit. So previously, if you weren't aware, when you clicked on these teleports, it would take you to the wrong place, and it was also kind of hard to tell if they were a teleport or not. So first of all, when you select something now, it has this little border. I don't think I mentioned that before, but it has a special thing now, so you can see what you're selecting. when you click on a teleport, it will select whatever teleport or whatever button the teleport leads to, and it also has this little arrow attached to it. So lots of bugs fixed with this. It just looks better, it acts better, it feels nicer, etc., etc. Very happy with that. And also this window is much more efficient in general now, so you don't have to worry as much about that. We also have these here, these obscure tabs, so you can see specifically fire and only fire, and obviously if you click this again, it unobscures everything else. Same deal here, and it'll take you to each one of the trees, which I think is actually really handy, because if this tree gets a little bit bigger, it'll be very unwieldy, or it would be very unwieldy without these tools. So again, super happy with that and how that turned out. Now, we've also done quite a bit of work on the melee tree, or sorry, the weapon tree. I keep wanting to call it melee, but it's not melee, it's the weapon specialist tree. So one of the things that I did was ironically change the name of the melee type damage to weapon type damage. So that's unaspected damage, which means that elemental defenses don't apply. And I've also added a serrated blades thing here, which is just a bleed chance. So bleeds are now an actual debuff. I mean, they kind of were a debuff before, but now they're an actual one. And for the record, the only way you can apply bleeds is through melee damage, weapon damage. God damn it. Apologize. It's been a recent change, but anyway, you get the idea. I've also fixed up a bunch of this stuff because before it wasn't properly scaling to level. Before this wasn't properly giving you DR move speed, or it was, but it was some fraction. It was like 0.01% or whatever. So that's all been fixed. The only tree that hasn't really been touched a ton is the racial tree, and that's mostly because most of these spells are relatively recent. Another big change that I've been working on quite a bit is, I mean, I already mentioned it, but basically fixing up spells, making them look nicer, making them feel nicer, making them be better overall, and things that are kind of like in-depth balance changes, like changing the number of projectiles as spellfires or something like that. Basically big alterations to spells to make them feel better and basically be better overall. But anyway, a couple of these that I've worked on specifically for the past 2 days or so have been nature and fire and a few others. So the easiest one to show off is probably Blazing Barrage, which is no longer just a piddling little 4-directional fireball. It is now a mighty 8-directional fireball. And this has also been changed because previously the origin was off-center with your character, and now it's a little bit off-center, but before the issue was that you could spawn all 8 on top of someone and kill them instantly because you'd hit them 8 times with every single fireball. So that's been changed now, and you can still get hit by multiple fireballs. I think I can probably show that here pretty easily if I just do that. Well, anyway, you get the idea. You can get hit by multiple of them, but now you can't hit all 8 as easily, at least, which is really important. But another one I've changed is Vine Siphon. So this one is mostly the same as what you've probably seen before, but it was very buggy for a long time. It didn't really do what it was supposed to for a little while. It was laggy, it would crash the server, it didn't do damage for a little while. All that stuff has been fixed, so it works like a normal spell would now. And it still needs to be tweaked so it feels a little bit better, but at least for right now, it is a-okay in terms of functionality, which is good. We've also fixed up Entangling Thorns, so this is a very awkward looking spell currently. However, it no longer breaks, which is good. You can see it did 27 damage, which seems kind of small, but the TLDR is that it bases itself off of movement, so if you move while you're under the effect, you take more damage. That's not super important, but just so you know what it does. And also, it doesn't have the overlay currently, so that's another thing that's a work in progress. But anyway, we can also hit Crawling Field down here, and this works considerably differently than it did before now. It spawns 3 individual little patches of vines, and then it spreads slowly, or actually relatively quickly, over to the target that it was cast on, which is pretty cool. And currently it doesn't do damage, but that's something I'll work on soon. Basically, before it was spawning vines in the wrong places, it was doing weird things, it would despawn at like random rates and stuff like that, so it was very clunky and weird, and all that stuff has been fixed, so now it's relatively nice looking when it grows, it makes sense what it does, and it's relatively easy to see that you shouldn't be standing on it when the time comes. The only thing that needs to be changed now is that it needs to do damage, of course. There are a few other examples of these. The most obvious one is probably Serrated Blades, which has a relatively straightforward visual. It is probably what you'd kind of expect from a spell like this. It just turns you red and makes you sparkle, because when you activate it, I believe quadruples. Yeah, so you get 30% bleed chance instead of 7.5%, which is obviously a ton. So that's been switched up and made to look kind of nice, I think. I think it looks pretty good. But generally speaking, the spell tree has just been revamped and readjusted over and over and over again for the sake of making everything look nice. And I think finally, the only thing I have left to mention about spells, mostly major thing to mention about spells, I guess, is that I've changed how particles happen. So before, particles would be sent over one by one, which is really inefficient, or at least mostly one by one. And I've changed this so that it instead sends over a string. So let's say like you're using serrated blades, it might send over serrated underscore main, and then that triggers all of the particles on the client. So no longer do you have to say, okay, well, this is the first particle of serrated blades, this is the second particle. You just say serrated blades, and then it handles all of that on the client. So a lot less packet lag when you're using certain spells, which is really, really good. And I think Zenith of Speed specifically has been enhanced out the wazoo in that regard. And that's about it for today. So I know it's a little bit fast for a showcase. I think it's like 16 minutes total or whatever. But anyway, I think that it's a better format overall to have this every 2 weeks because we can fit a lot more content into a single showcase, much more rapid fire. And honestly, I end up with a more firm grasp on what I'm talking about because I don't have to make things look nice. I just have to make them work, which is really cool. And of course, the whole playtest thing helps a bunch as well because bugs don't show up in showcases, which makes my life quite a bit easier. But anyway, I hope you guys appreciate this kind of stuff because recently I've been very, very, very hype about Verdicts. And I know that that's kind of redundant to say because of obviously Rumi, aren't you always excited about Verdicts? But I mean, I am, but especially recently because it's something that you kind of dread, like, well, you know, what if the playtest doesn't go well? What if the server is super overloaded? What if that takes like a couple months to fix or whatever? And then I tried the playtest and CPU is sitting at 1% with 6 people on a $10 server, and memory is at 20% with 2 gigabytes of RAM, and it's like, that's fantastic. You know, that's like actually stellar. So I'm super happy about that, and I'm so happy about it that it makes me super eager to push things forward. And again, of course, I'm always, you know, excited to push things forward, but especially in this case, right? It's something that I'm very eager to do and very excited to do. So anyway, I'm very down for everything that's going on, and I hope you guys are too. And I hope you look forward to what's coming next because, by God, it's pretty awesome in my opinion. More outfits soon, more map assets soon. I need to import the map assets. I feel bad about taking a little time for those. It's the swamp stuff and a couple other things, but whatever the case, that's okay. It's not too bad. I think that we have most of what we need anyway right now, but I will be buying more soon, and I will be importing the rest of what we have soon too. I just wanted to mention that. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's showcase, and I will see you in 2 weeks, but I will try to post a little bit in the showcase channel and probably on my Twitter because I've been slacking on that a little bit. And in addition, you'll hear much more about the playtest from the people on the playtest and myself and so on and so forth. But anyway, hope you have a great week. I hope you have a great 2 weeks, actually. Bye.